Bullshit. It's a great word. It's a great word because it has so many different meanings. You could scream bullshit when you're pissed off about something that's angered you, upset you. That's bullshit. That's just bullshit. Or it could be somewhat quizzical and confusing or concerning. Like I could say to Hansberry, I don't know, that kind of sounds like bullshit to me.
You say that a lot, actually,
I say that
to me.
a lot to you, yeah. Or it could be part of a very casual evening. Hey, what do you want to do tonight? I don't know, man. Just come over, let's have some drinks, we'll bullshit the night away and just have a good time. It also applies to certain things in your life as well, at least for me anyway. When you don't want to deal with bullshit. Nothing that angers you, it's just become this little piece of minutia that you no longer want to deal with. I'll give you a perfect example of what I'm talking about. In my garage is a new car that I got today. It's the same car. It's the same car that I had 3 years ago. Granted, a newer model, the 2019, but it's the same color car. And I did take the advice of friends and family. Why don't you go out and look at something different or something new? And I went and I looked at some different things, and I heard the bullshit spiel from every car salesman about, well, your advertisement says it's this much. Well, yes, it's that much if you put this much down, and so forth and so on. And finally I said, I don't want to deal with this bullshit. I went back to my original dealer and I said, can I get the same car? Can I just trade keys like I did the last time? And I got the same car, new car, brand new, everything, 12 miles on it, and didn't pay a penny more. Not a penny more. I eliminated the bullshit. I've taken it a step further, and this part might be a little comical. I'm throwing away all my socks that are black and dark blue. And I'm going to buy all new black socks because I'm tired of the bullshit at laundry time of trying to separate the dark blue ones from the black ones. It's taken time out of my life that I don't want to waste. It's bullshit. So unless my socks upstairs have some sort of discernible pattern, I'm getting rid of them and buying all black ones. And I'll be done with that bullshit forever and a day. So why do I keep emphasizing bullshit tonight? Well, the two guys that are on the podcast tonight are not bullshit, but they have a podcast called Bourbon and B.S., which is, in fact, every time I've brought up the word bullshit, they go, no, it's B.S. It's B.S. because it is. It's two guys that sit down and get into these wonderful conversations about life and the mysteries that surround it. And I was on their podcast, and I finally have found time to get them on my podcast so we could continue in the spirit of that same evening and that wonderful time that I had on Bourbon and B.S. So we'll get to them in just a moment and introduce them. First of all, the guest bottle tonight, a couple of reasons. We have Old Forester Statesman. When I was on Bourbon and B.S., we had 2 Old Forester bottles on that show. I wanted to keep the theme going. Plus, it's a great bourbon. We haven't had it on the show yet, but I have tasted it, and it's wonderful. And I'm really a fan of the Kingsman movies, so it kind of ties into that. This bottle ties into that. I'll tell you a little bit more about it later. Hansberry, some business before we get to our guests.
Well, of course, subscribe and follow us on all your favorite podcasting apps, it's specifically iTunes. Take your friend's phone and log onto their iTunes account and just hit subscribe for us. That would be, why not, right?
Right.
But also rate and review us, because when you review us and rate us, all the fancy algorithms, it makes us more discoverable for all the other people. Algorithms and discoverable.
Okay. I don't know.
I don't know either. Or discovery. So we please and thank you. That helps us grow. We're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis. Click subscribe there. We're always pushing out fun videos and shorts from Whiskey Business. Also want to remind people of the Podfest Midwest. It's the big deal. It used to be the Columbus Podcast Festival, but now it's the Podfest Midwest because they've opened it up to other podcasts.
Other cities in the Midwest besides Columbus.
Right. All the way to Indianapolis.
Hey, man.
Midwest.
Indianapolis.
I do too. I'm from there. But check it out, podfestmidwest.com, or keep your eyes peeled to our social media accounts, because we're going to be performing again this year. And when we do, we want you guys to be a part of that. So we'll make sure you get the dates. But it's August 22nd, 23rd, 24th, 25th, and we'll fill you in on details when
Thursday
that.
through Sunday, with Sunday culminating in the Podfest Midwest Awards.
The podcast,
all those
Columbus
wonderful votes that you cast for Whiskey Business.
Awards.
We'll see if they tabulate into a win before it's all said and done. So good.
We're set.
Good on the business. Good on the business side. I can get to the BS side.
Let's get to the BS.
Bourbon and B.S., the podcast with Steve and Jake. Steve Crane.
That's right.
And Jake Sanders.
Yes, sir.
Have Bourbon and B.S., a podcast that I was invited to in Steve's garage.
That's right.
Which I love that whole feel of the garage. If I didn't know I was going there to do a podcast, given my prior history in life, I would have thought, I'm getting whacked. I mean, it was that kind of atmosphere.
You're getting made? Mom, getting made.
Or unmade. But it's a really cool podcast, and that's basically it. It's Bourbon and BS. You guys pick a topic, and off you go. And it's just the two of you, and sometimes you have other people on to talk to in a mix in the conversation. Obviously, I was there. But sometimes it's just the two of you, right?
Yep.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
This week, actually, is going to be just the two of us.
Yeah. So who came up with the idea?
Go ahead.
Well, initially it kind of started off with we were doing Whiskey Wednesdays together as friends, and we would try a different bottle every Wednesday. We would go back and forth to see or get a bottle for each other, right, every week, and then it kind of blossomed into the different history and stuff. We looked up different things about the distilleries, and I would post it just on my personal Instagram and social media, and I used to get a bunch of people coming up and saying, why aren't you doing a podcast about this, or commenting about it? And obviously Steve's a good friend of mine, and we were thinking of doing the bourbon and then the cigar part of it, and I wanted him to be a part of it, and his cigar expertise for being in the industry for 6 years?
Yeah, over
now?
6 years, yeah.
Yeah, so it kind of just blossomed into that as an idea, and then we figured if we were going to do this right, that it should be different, and that's where the topic came into play. So
it's a great podcast. How long you guys been doing it now?
We just wrapped up episode 71.
71.
So we do it weekly, so about a little over a year.
A little over
That's
a year.
great.
Yeah. It's a lot of fun. And cigars are a part of it, because as you mentioned, you're how many years in the cigar world?
6.5.
6.5.
6.5 working in it. I mean, obviously I've been a part of it for a long time, but yeah.
I am not a cigar aficionado. My brother-in-law is. He sent me some. I found an old humidor down here in the poker room, and I actually took it upstairs, which after the podcast is over, I'm going to have you guys look at it and tell me what I need to do to keep what's in there fresh and vibrant, because there's some cigars in there that he sent me that were hand-rolled by our friend Ulysses down in Tampa.
Sounds made up to me. yeah, Ulysses.
Ulysses is Cuban, and he has a cigar shop. And
air quotes.
Doesn't sound Cuban, does it, Ulysses?
No,
it's not your typical Cuban name.
But he knows how to roll cigars, and he rolls his own. He gets obviously he gets the same type of products you guys get, because you guys work together in the cigar business as well, don't you?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So Jake works at the shop as well, and I manage
the shop being
Tinderbox at Easton.
Tinderbox.
So based out of Columbus, Ohio, and Tinderbox at Easton is at a high-end retail area. So we have a neighbor that's basically a fully booked Hilton at all times, so we get a lot of traffic there and a lot of regulars as well. And then we have our own brand as well, so called BS, which is very fitting. Once again,
you have your own cigar brand.
You smoked.
Yeah, I did.
The podcast or the Tinderbox
the shop,
says? Okay.
So it's BS, which actually doesn't stand for bullshit. It actually stands for Brian and Steve.
But it's your own. It's your own cigar.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
So you're doing a podcast for a year, and they got their own cigar.
That's awesome.
We've been doing ours for going on almost
3.
We don't have our own whiskey
Well,
yet.
you need it to age about 5 or 7 years.
Oh, well, that's not true. That's not true. Jeff Mattingly gave us our own.
We did.
whiskey.
All right. Thanks, Jeff.
All right.
And that was kind of the idea really behind the naming of the podcast, when we were talking about the actual name, and we kind of I wanted to pay homage to it, and I know Steve did too, but obviously the BS is such a big hit at the Tinderbox, and it's kind of just become a culture, funny enough, but that's where the name came from. So, but obviously it's mostly joked about as being bullshit, as you say, Dino.
But it's not bullshit. I mean, I obviously I keyed off of that because that's what I wanted to get to in the opening. My openings always lead to what we're actually going to be talking about. But how did you two? Was it the cigar world that brought you two together?
Yeah,
basically.
actually, yeah.
Because, pardon me, but you don't seem like two guys. Perception being reality. To first look at the two of you don't look like two guys that would hang out together.
Right.
If you look around, so the typical cigar shop, right? That's kind of where the mentality is, and so Jake had alluded to it with the garage atmosphere.
Right.
Ever since I had been in the previous house, right before you came over, actually, I just moved into a new one, but it was just like a gathering place. You know what I mean? So you could hang out at the cigar shop, you can hang out the bars or whatever else, but it's like when you're hanging out, just like you guys do here, it's in the garage. So you have people of all different walks of life at the cigar shop. And some of them are drinkers, some of them, like, they're all smokers, but some of them are in their 50s, 60s, some of them are in their 20s, some of them, like, everywhere in between. And the common ground there is the hobby, then lifestyle, and then basically when you get older, you find that you don't have the close-knit of friends. You know what I mean? It's always through work or through your neighborhood or through your kids or whatever else it is. With the cigar shop, it's just you go there, you hang out, you're not getting away from anything, but then all of a sudden you just start up a conversation with a stranger, and then you see them again, and then you see them again, and then it's how's the wife, how are the kids, how's it? Hey,
it's
I
like
need
a
help.
dive bar almost.
It
mentality.
is, yeah.
And
then it's hey, I need help. What are you doing Saturday? I got this piece of furniture I need to move. You know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, I need a mechanic. Does anyone know a mechanic? And then all of a sudden we become the community Rolodex as well. And so that's where the hookup here, as far as that goes, is that we just started. You have the cigars, then you have the whiskey, and so then Jake and I start kind of hanging out more and more and more, and then it just evolved into this.
Yeah.
Now, is there a bottle of? I don't want to break any code, but does a bottle of whiskey ever get pulled out from behind the counter from time to time?
Not behind the counter.
Not behind, right on the counter.
No.
I wish.
Typically, no. So we do have a locker room. And so, yeah, we have a locker room.
You have a locker room?
That's right.
Do you guys each have your own locker?
I do, yeah.
I don't.
You don't have, oh, Jake.
They come few far in between, believe it or not. They are always sold out.
We've got about 60
no.
lockers.
See, once again, this is a world that I am not a part of and don't know anything about. There's actually customers that have their own lockers at the Tinderbox.
That's right.
Yes,
yeah.
sir.
What are in these lockers?
So the whole point of it is so that you can buy cigars, especially ones that you really like. So you can buy a box, or you can buy some rare ones, or whatever it is, or just buy them so that you have them there. And then when they come into the shop, you just walk straight into the locker room, which is where we go back and get the cigars anyways. So it's a humidified area, and they can go in there and they just get in their own locker. Everyone's got a key for their own, and you can keep cutters, lighters, whatever you want in there as well. And then there might be a couple bottles back there.
Buddy, might have a
might be.
See,
That's
those
funny.
are the kind of lockers. That's the only gym I think I'd want to be a member of.
Yeah.
As far as lockers go,
Yeah.
I would have my own locker. That's the locker I want to have. That's the only locker I would need.
We try to be discreet with it, though. I mean, because obviously,
of course you do.
So you go to like a destination cigar shop. It's one of those things where you can have the bottles out on the tables because no one's really. It's not a high traffic area. But where we're at, it's a lot of people coming in. I mean, we average like between 100 and 200 customers a day.
Yeah,
so
you're not
going
gonna
to have a bunch of guys hanging out drinking in there. It's not really the,
You're not, and
the
that's not,
retail friendly.
and that's not what it's supposed to be.
No.
It's supposed to. It is more about the cigars. As much cigars. But let's be honest, the two are a match made in heaven, whiskey and cigars.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Right? I mean,
Absolutely.
They go hand in hand. So you guys started the podcast and you started to be friends, and now you do this on a weekly basis. You mentioned something that I thought was kind of interesting. As you get older, you said not as close knit with friends as you get older. And did you find that to be true for yourself or in general?
So myself, yes. So just from what I've found and when you talk to a lot of people, my family, friends, people in the cigar shop as well, is that when you're younger, it's your neighborhood friends, right? Based on where your parents moved or where you grew up, those are your friends. Then school happens, common hobbies, where your locker is, proximity basically is your friend zone at that point.
Right.
Then you go off to college, you get a job, whatever it is, everyone kind of moves away to try to keep in touch. These days you have Facebook and other social media things that you can do that with.
It's not the same.
But that's checking up, seeing pictures of kids or vacations or whatever. But as you do get older, you kind of start honing into your home life and work life, and then if you have hobbies, or if you have kids, your kids' hobbies become what you're doing with your waking hours, right?
Hansberry will tell you.
Yeah, I mean, right?
I've watched so many YouTube videos on like little kid youth baseball in the past like 4 months of my life.
Oh yeah, but so like at
that's all I get off on now. It's like, look at that pitching form.
So like your social. It's a weird way you said that.
It was weird.
The social life.
He's a weird little man.
The social life basically becomes what you're doing, right? And who you surround yourself with. So, besides getting together every once in a while as you get older, with some of your friends, and then again, you can move away just out of the neighborhood or a different part of town or a different state. Now it's long distance calls used to be the thing. Now it's easy to text and all that stuff. It becomes very impersonal. So,
I'm curious if Jake has the same. How many years difference between the two of you?
So there's a 14-year
14 years. Mm-hmm. So do you feel the same way with it being 14 years younger, or do you still feel close to do you still feel somewhat close knit to the friends that you had growing up? I guess I'm trying to figure out where we think this divide begins. And to prepare you.
No. No, I appreciate it. But the funny part is that's kind of why Steve and I kind of gathered towards each other, if you will, is because I don't act like a normal 24-year-old, as you can see. So
no.
It's kind of like a match made in heaven, much like whiskey and cigars.
When I first met you two and found out that there was, the 14, almost 15-year gap between the two of you, I was amazed, because you seem to be an old soul.
Yeah.
I was trying to be like, well, there's no way I was trying to guess. I'm like, he's probably in his 30s, but you don't look like you're fucking 50. I was like, geez, wow.
Thank you. Yeah.
So you're 24. That's what we're getting at. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so
and I'm 38.
Yeah, so
he's not 50.
Well, right, that's what I was like. There's
I look good for 50.
You look fucking great for 50. But you just have that old soul look. Yeah. You came walking in. I could have swore he was 35.
Yeah, so
I mean that as a compliment.
No, I appreciate it. As Steve says, it's city miles.
I'm glad you're not 50.
But no, it kind of. I'm getting into that realm now where. I'm seeing the friends that I was friends with in high school and college.
Right.
College was a little bit different because there was a lot of, I played football in school, so they were all around the nation. So when we graduated, it's all that social media that keeps us together, really, and we may see each other on homecoming every other year. But with friends in high school, I don't really talk to them just because this is my arena.
You grow up too, and interests change.
Right.
You don't do the same thing you did when you were 16.
I'm very close with the two guys that I went to high school and college with, still to this day. I mean, I keep in touch with them on a weekly basis, and we try to see each other a couple times a year. For the last handful of years, we've all met in Pittsburgh, gone to a Pirates game, and then grabbed a couple other guys that we've gone to college with and knew. It's about 5 or 6 of us, but the mainstay being the 4 of us from college: Spiro, Greg, Dave, and myself. We always try to get together no matter what. And through the years, as I've gotten older, I mentioned we should tell you that if the environment, if you're watching on YouTube, and if you're just listening, for those that are watching can see the environment for tonight's episode of Whiskey Business is slightly different. Normally we're upstairs in the bar. Tonight we're downstairs in the poker room to give ourselves a little bit more room and let the cigars breathe a little bit.
Are you apologizing for the clunks and clanks of
this room, this poker table this game has traveled from my very first apartment in Clintonville to my second apartment in Clintonville to my house now in Clintonville. We had a long-standing game that went about 15, 16 years. Every Monday, without fail, we would play poker here on Monday night. Now, that is something that time, as you mentioned, has affected. People have gotten older, gotten real lives and real jobs, and had families and kids, and have married, divorced, or whatever, and gone separate ways. So only in the last couple of years has the game kind of split up. We still play, but not every Monday. I mean, it was like clockwork. Monday, that's it.
But even those friends, I mean, were they poker buddies? Like, I mean, they work guys that invited this guy, and then all of a sudden they become regulars, and all of a sudden you see them every week.
It all started at the Funny Bone. It
Okay.
all started with me when back in my stand-up years, and we all kind of and the Funny Bone at the Continent before it was at Easton. So we're going back, and it was a gathering place, the Gathering at the Continent. Some people remember that, and we all congregated at the Funny Bone and met at the Funny Bone, and we used to play in the club after open mic night was over with, and then something happened where the manager said, "Could you take the game elsewhere?" And I said, "I'll host it," and I started hosting the game, and then went on from there. And I mean, the people that came in and out of that game, comics who, I remember comics that were coming through town, opening acts and feature acts, who would come here on a Monday night after they were done, before they were going off on the next gig, would come in and lose everything that they fucking made on that night, or sometimes double it, whatever the case might be. I mean, we didn't discriminate. You sat down. It was a small buy-in, $40 buy-in, but the game went from 8:30 at night till 4 o'clock in the morning. So
that's a party.
That's a long time. That's a long time to sit and lose, and it's a long time to sit and win. And you keep thinking, if you're losing, eventually it's going to turn. And if you're winning, trust me, you stick around long enough, it's going to turn. It's going to go the other way as well. But there was a lot of people. I mean, just comics and criminals and bookies and just it was a crazy ride of 15 years. But that core group of 6 to 8 are still friends today.
Yeah.
Well, see, that's the point, right? So you met them through comedy,
right?
So again, the proximity changes, and again, that's at the cigar shop. You spend more time with your family, and then at a gathering place, using the same words that you use there. That's the cigar shop. That's the cigar culture. That's what. Then all of a sudden, like, we wanted to put kind of out there. And that's what the garage is about. And that's where you have the cigars and the whiskey. And like you always say with this podcast, it's a podcast with whiskey.
Not so much about whiskey.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah,
I mean, we try to educate you a little bit, and let's take advantage of that. I mean, like I said, when I was on Bourbon and B.S., I brought over
1920.
1920. I couldn't get the 1870.
He had the 18.
I had the 1897 bottled in bond.
Yeah.
And then you couldn't get the 1910.
The 1910.
That's what it was.
Just a great bottle.
And then the Old
You can't find
Forester
that in Ohio.
is part of the 4-bottle roster that Old Forester put out, and the Statesman is one of them. Yeah, it's got something to do with the Kingsman movie. I mean, there was some promotional behind that. This is the if you've seen Kingsman: The Golden Circle, the Statesman used the distillery as their cover for their shenanigans, their secret agent shenanigans. Much like Whiskey Business is just a cover for Hansberry.
You've already said too much.
I know. It's just a cover for a secret operation. After we do the podcast once a week, and then we go and we fight crime globally.
See, now I think that we're over here in your basement and we're about to get a hit.
And we're in your place.
Yeah, like, hey,
we
come
said
downstairs where there's no exits.
Or are Jake and Steve part of the organization as well?
No, 100%. Well, going back to what you're saying, the whiskey thing is the community, like you guys are talking about. I mean, and just look at the three of us, wise guys, John and you and me, are three unlikely cohorts, but it's all. This is what has brought us together.
The whiskey definitely brought the three of us together. And I know. Have you done that? Have you converted people? Like the people that I go, I'm not a big bourbon guy, and now they love bourbon, or I'm not a big cigar guy, and now they love cigars. Has your influence taken hold on some of your friends over the course of the years, and especially in the last year and a half while you've been doing the podcast?
I think it's more you're expanding it. So I don't like they like whiskey, but I like Jack Daniels, or I like Scotch, I like Irish, I like something like that. I don't really do bourbon. When we first met, Jake was like, I don't like Scotch, and I was more of a Scotch drinker at the time. And this is going back 2-3 years or whatever. So he's introduced me to a lot of different things with bourbon.
I feel like I've converted Steve. Well, I mean, you drank a lot longer than I have, but
easy. But yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I was a Scotch guy before, and then when I would drink other whiskeys, it was usually Jack Daniels, and then all of a sudden, I just started seeing more bourbons and started trying more bourbons, and now I still drink Scotch from time to time. I still like a Scotch, but most of the time it's bourbon. And this one, we do all agree we like the Statesman, right?
Absolutely.
It's a 95 proof.
Very good.
I mentioned before it's part of the 4-bottle roster that Old Forester put up. their Whiskey Row series, and Jake's been envious of the fact that we had Jackie Zykin on from Old Forester, the master
highly jealous that
master
day.
taster,
Highly jealous.
who we told her we're not blowing smoke up your Old Forester ass, but
It's good.
I've said it before. I'll say it again. They seldom disappoint me in any product they put out, from their basic $25 bottle to this $55 bottle.
That fits in between the 86 and the 100 proof really well. I think it's not as sweet as the 86.
Well, that was part of their whole thing with the Whiskey Row. They wanted different proofs.
It's good.
Going up the ladder, and I think that's a nice compliment to the row.
It's incredibly smooth. Incredibly, in my opinion.
It's very good. We just had the Cooper's Craft 100 proof
wow,
podcast
nice.
last week.
How was
and
that?
I think that's one of my new favorites.
Really?
It's just that my palate is right at 100 proof. I love just the complexities that 100 proof brings, and higher sometimes. But then that I love Eagle Rare, and that's 95. So
Right.
it doesn't always have to be 100
No, it
proof.
doesn't. But it's interesting that you say that, because my brother-in-law's the same way. He's gotten to the point where if it's not 100 proof or more, he's not satisfied, or he's not as impressed.
Right.
But I was sitting on the front porch, another gathering spot.
I saw that.
We're going to be on the front porch.
His
after this podcast.
his front porch is as nice as some people's living rooms.
the front porch is in this house is probably the true oracle of the home, where people sit and talk.
That's my garage.
Yeah, that's
The
your garage.
equivalent of-
That's
exactly,
yes.
yeah.
My front porch is your garage, and your garage is my front porch.
It's like on an SAT test.
But that's
what makes that the basement is what?
that
makes the basement?
This is the
Basement is too.
This is this basement is the fucking den of inequity, and this is what this basement
There's
is.
been deals done. I can feel it.
He said he
There
had
was-
bookies
I
on
brushed
here.
up against the wall. I'm like,
there
something
were all
happened
kinds
here.
of people that have come through these doors, and there was actually about 10, 12 years ago, there was a rap video shot down here.
Were you rapping?
No, I was not. That was not my rap, not my video.
Is that on iTunes?
No, that would be awesome.
YouTube, please.
That would be awesome. No,
I need to check this
no,
out.
it was a young local rapper who I helped out, and he needed a place to shoot a video, so. It was down here, and there were blunts going, and everything right here in this particular little room.
It's the only room in the whole house that has rules too. By the way.
Oh, the rules
was
of the
noticing
house.
that, yeah.
There's actually 10 of them, but those are the top 5 for the poker room. Rules of the house: got blow, you gotta go. I don't care for narcotics.
Yeah.
On crack, don't come back. That's when crack was really fashionable. Didn't want it, and somebody came.
It was fashionable.
Yeah,
Is the word you
that's
wanna use
interesting.
there.
Fashionable. That's the word I'm
Fashionable.
using.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a nice coat.
Easy, accessible.
Yeah. Do you have any crack in that coat? 'Cause it's a really handsome
It's
jacket
really-
you have on.
It was crack was the drug of choice, and I said don't come back because
Nordstrom.
I hated the people that I saw that came in here on crack. I wanted nothing to do with them.
Yeah.
Nordstrom crack.
Got a gun only if you're on the run. That's fair. You know,
Okay. Yeah.
been there, done that. Partake of liquor and brew. It's what we do. And then the Greek has final say. My house, my way. There's also a rule number 6, and I can't remember what the actual rhyme was because, as you noticed, those
Only
all
5
rhyme.
is the one without the rhyme.
5, no, but there's other rhymes too. There was one in there regarding you can't put your dick on the table.
Oh, nice.
For
the fact that
sanitary reasons, man.
there was
That's
something
That's
happened
just
that
a
needed to be a
Wait,
rule.
you eat off this sometimes. You don't want that.
Is this,
Well, I want to know
feel
what
like this
happened. Why
flowed
you had
well.
to come up with that rule?
we're not animals. Oh yeah, here goes.
Partially.
Here's the other ones. No whipping out your dick. That bet don't stick.
Well, no one's gonna raise you. on that.
Somebody went all in and then did that. Want to watch a DVD? Please ask me because I got tired of people fucking up the TV and the DVD player trying to watch something. Because I remember the game goes from 8:30 till 4:30 in the morning. Some guys will step out and go watch a movie. On acid, try to remain placid.
Good trips only.
Got shrooms. We'll try not to distort the room. And the Greek has final say. My place, my way. Yeah. But the top 5 are the ones who were the most important
A
ones.
lot of drug
references. Yeah. It was fashionable.
What is it? Number 3 and number 4, I feel like go really well together. You know what I mean? Like,
got a
so
gun
if you're
only if
drinking,
you're on the run.
You should not
Yeah.
be carrying a firearm in a closed space.
But they're also very giving. You know, if you're on the run, okay, we got it. Sure.
Just maybe don't partake in number 4.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And partake of liquor and brew. It's what we do. And I think 3 came for a reason. Someone was packing, and I said, "Why are you bringing a gun here?" And they explained it to me. I went, "All right."
He's on.
But you know,
we don't say that name.
But
he's still serving right now. He's still serving time, right?
I love how
nice
you
guy though.
Pulled it out of the drawer back there, right?
Yeah,
I remembered that the whole list was in there.
It's like a filing cabinet.
It's
back
only
there.
like 2 feet away. I love it.
Yeah, I got the sense
He's
memory.
had to pull it out before, like not like for that one rule, but I'm saying pull out the rule.
Yeah, seriously, somebody actually pulled out their penis and put it on the table.
Did they win?
Did they raise you?
Did they raise you?
Yeah.
Good one. For the people who are watching this on YouTube, did you have a seat? Do you like?
Am I sitting in that seat?
No,
Yeah,
actually,
like,
this is my seat. This is
you would always sit there.
This is where I sit.
That's why you wanted me to sit here.
This is where I sit right
He gets to
here
see the doorway.
because I'm close to the bottle that we would have here. Because the rule is, if you get a full house or better, everybody has to do a shot.
Oh wow, I like that.
Yeah. Now, but the punishment was that it was really shitty whiskey. So it wasn't like, oh, I can't wait to do it. It was painful.
Yeah.
It was like Mark Twain whiskey or
Gut juice.
yeah.
Gut
Actually,
rock.
one of them that was because it was so cheap was JT S Brown.
Oh yeah.
Which is not a bad.
It's not. The 100 proof is
The
great.
100 proof was good, you know. That we didn't have the 100 proof, but that was like so everybody had to, and that's where the night would take ugly.
then the dick started coming out.
Yeah, one.
Am I sitting at the dick seat?
No,
That's
the dick seat was where John's sitting
Perfect.
right now.
Nice, John.
John.
Congratulations.
And I remember who did that. That was my friend Sean Dickerson, who's since passed away.
Wow, that's
It's a fitting name though.
yeah.
Yeah, Sean Dickerson. Yeah, I never really put
I'm
that
not trying to make
together.
light that he passed away. It's just
No. If he's watching and he's looking down,
He's like, yeah.
He's like,
He's like, they
yeah.
finally got it.
Yeah.
They finally got it.
Yeah, he would love to piss me off. He would come in here and I would have pizza or I'd have subs. I'd have food for the guys. He never ate the goddamn food that I had. He'd always go into my refrigerator and grab something out of my refrigerator and make something completely on his own different from what was down here. And I know he did it just to you know?
Oh, yeah.
That was part of his charm. That was part of his charm. He goes, "Oh man, I want a bologna sandwich." I'm like, God damn it. So he would go, "I'm peanut butter and jelly," whatever the case might be. He would just do it to make it. But
Wait, sidebar. When I was up there waiting for the restroom, do you have 2 full bags of only marshmallows for Lucky Charm marshmallows?
Are these self-created or is it? They sell
no,
that?
there are 2 4-pound bags.
4-pound fucking bags. They're like trash bags.
There are 2 4-pound bags of dried marshmallows, the same marshmallows that you see in Lucky Charms, and 2 4-pound bags. That's a joke. I gave up sweets for Lent this year, and my buddy Chris Beardman had 2 4-pound bags
Thanks, Beardman.
of marshmallows delivered to my house on Easter Sunday when Lent was over. And I don't know what to do with them because they're a gift, and I just can't. I don't feel right just throwing them away.
Offer them to guests.
So,
I'm not gonna take them.
Who's gonna eat them? Who's gonna?
Just every time you like do
Who's-
something like this, like
just-
put a bowl out, like instead of hard candies,
who's gonna eat a dried
put
marshmallow?
that
Werther's
out.
Originals and marshmallows.
Werther's
You know,
Originals.
unless I wanted just like the best cereal high ever, I could just pour them into a bowl and throw milk on them,
Yeah.
and then it's,
You could crush them up and say, "Hey, rule number 1 is out tonight," and just
go.
like lay it out there.
Magically
you know what I mean?
delicious.
Yeah, exactly. You guys ready for this?
They're all different colors.
yeah. I'm the best shit ever.
Yeah,
I got
pink.
a guy.
Have you ever seen Pink Crack?
It's more fashionable that way.
There you go. Back to that.
It's like, what kind of meth is he making?
The new stuff.
Oh man. All right.
Oh, that is good.
Thank you for the Statesman. It's great.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for the Statesman, and thank you for the bottles that you guys brought for backup, in case we run out. Which I told you didn't have to do.
Well, we got 2 backups.
You got 2
'cause
backups.
I want you to try
But
that.
see, this is why I was so anxious to return I don't even want to say courtesy, because it's not courtesy, because this is something why I wanted to get you guys back on, because when I went to Bourbon and B.S., man, I was so comfortable in that garage. And the conversation went on for a long time, longer than we'll probably talk tonight.
Right.
But I was just like, I can't wait to get these guys back on, because whenever I feel that, for lack of a better word, that kinship, that that coming together with people on a different level, I want to do it again.
Yeah.
I want to continue it.
Right.
So I apologize for taking so long, but the whole Monday night thing was kind of hard to work out. In fact, I sacrificed the bocce ball game tonight.
Which it rained, so we're okay.
But if it didn't thunder and lightning, they're still going to play in the rain.
Some hardcore Italians.
Oh, yeah, those are you kidding me? They take their bocce very, 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 very seriously.
Yeah.
We appreciate you having us on.
No,
for sure.
I'm thrilled, and by all means, Bourbon and B.S. is. We'll mention all the information later, but it's available just like Whiskey Business wherever you get your podcast, and they Facebook Live their whole podcast. You still doing that?
That's our thing. That's where we get the most attention.
Yeah.
Yeah,
we're averaging between 2,000 and 4,000 views live on Facebook.
Yeah.
every week.
There you go.
Yeah.
Now, do they go back? Do you find people go back and actually listen to the actual podcast itself, or are you happy with the whole Facebook Live? Because we're starting to get into that arena a little bit. We did a little Facebook Live, teasing the fact that you guys will be on next week and promoting last week's podcast. But we're not. I don't know what's holding us back from going Facebook Live every time.
Yeah, what we found is that we started doing just the audio, right, when we first started out a year ago.
Like we did.
Yeah, exactly, yeah. So that we did that, then we tried doing some Instagram Live, which that was really rough, and that was like episode 10 or whatever, and we were literally passing the phone around, just kind of doing behind the scenes thing. and then we basically propped up the camera, and then we figured out that Instagram Live is only on for 24 hours at the time, and you can only do so much of it. And then it was Facebook Live. We did that, and it was so a year ago we were getting 500, 800, even today. So people go back and view it. You get 500 or 800, and then we spiked at about over 4,000.
That's awesome.
Recently. So on the audio side, though, when I look at our statistics for posting the audio, it's grown a little bit, but it's definitely muted by the fact that there's a lot of attention that we throw towards that medium, which is the Facebook.
You're just
and the
picking.
video.
You're picking and choosing what you want, and
we post on YouTube, like you guys do. We do the YouTube. I post. We post that on Fridays after our live thing, and so there's there's probably 100 people that subscribe to the YouTube channel, and then we I want to say per month we're about 2,000 downloads. So I mean, we're still you guys have been doing it for 3 years.
Yeah, but you guys are right there with us.
But we do have some listeners that only listen.
Right.
That's when they get it, when they get the alert that there's a new episode of the Bourbon and B.S. podcast. But then we have a lot of people that will tune in on Wednesdays and listen.
What this podcast has done, though, it's kind of, and I say this in the best way possible, forcing our hand to want to find other ways to get it out there. When we first started it, it was just fun. We're just doing it for fun.
Right.
Now that we really love it, we want more people to see it and experience it. So Facebook Live is probably going to be the next step for us.
Here's the difference that we found doing the Facebook Live, and you don't have to do it the way we do it, but we have an iPad or phones out on the table. So it's one of those things that you bring into your history with radio, that you can open the calls, right?
Yeah, you got people
so
chiming in.
Yeah, it's really cool to see on the chat. You've got that live aspect. So as we're talking,
Krista chimed in earlier.
Right,
when we were,
right.
Yeah.
So as we're talking,
Thanks,
you
Krista.
have these people asking questions, or they'll tune in late and hey, I missed it. What are you guys drinking tonight? And then we have a guy that's kind of our producer, Dustin, who's sitting back there and he's answering some of these questions. But then you also find it's kind of cool. You see these conversations start developing between listeners while we're recording.
Yeah.
So if we're not able to respond,
and they're not even asking us.
They're going back and forth.
You've inspired them to get into their own conversation, or argument.
So they're basically hanging out down in the basement, or they're hanging out in the garage with us. They're part of that, and so that's part of what we like to do.
And I think that's what's kind of catapulted the whole thing, is that we've created an event every week.
Mm-hmm.
It's a community, and it's an event every week. That's why, like Steve said, we do have the true listeners that listen to it in their car or whatever on their way to work. But there's actually people sitting in bars on their iPad or phone, watching the podcast.
Watching the
live.
podcast.
So
that's kind of cool.
yeah.
No, that's not kind of cool. That's very cool.
Yeah.
It's like it's like the Twitch feed. And see, I think we're definitely past that generation. But the Twitch feed is the people watch each other play video games. Like that's what they do.
Get that.
But it's so popular. I mean, millions and millions of views for somebody just playing Fortnite. But it's the same. I'm not making
You're
this
not wrong.
up.
Someday I'm gonna play Fortnite just like that guy.
But part of the thing is then there's these people who are watching it are having these conversations, these threads talking about that. But then all of a sudden they start talking about XYZ, and it's just it's this community thing of this niche thing that this group of people give a shit enough to spend their time and effort and energy being a part of.
Yeah.
So now, do you feel a commitment and an obligation to do it? I mean,
A little.
yeah.
But
I mean, do you feel like if you don't do one week that you're disappointing people?
well, that hasn't really even been an option. Like we kind of at the beginning when we set out to do this, that was one of the things that we said was to be consistent.
We just said the same thing.
So no matter what, it is happening. So and that's what I mean. Just recently that I had some job troubles, and then so I took some hours at the shop, and it happened to be that the hours were on Wednesday. So what did I do? Because this is real life. I took 3 weeks off, and then Steve kind of held down the fort, and Dustin and Nate kind of filled in my space, and then we still had our guests, but the show went on.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the same goes for when Steve goes on vacation or I go on vacation. It is always happening, no matter what.
Do you guys want to do a podcast without me one week?
Thank God, I've been waiting for you to ask us.
So the difference is, it's interesting. The difference is when we've introduced the Facebook Live portion of it.
Yeah.
It's the fact that we could record. If you're just doing audio, you can do it anytime. You can actually double up. You know what I mean? Like we're gonna do an hour one, and then we're gonna do a double hour one, and then we just post it or basically publish it at different times. But instead, like people are expecting it. At one point, when we were doing it at 7 p.m. sharp, we were starting to get messages from people that were like tuning in. Like, hey guys, it's 7:05. What's going on?
Where are you?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, because
okay.
they were setting their.
Chop.
They need
tick-tock,
us.
Let's go.
Yeah, like our buddy Ray. He at the time he was in Hong Kong, and now he's in Vietnam. And when he was in Hong Kong, he was one of those guys that it's whatever time in the morning that he's waking up, and he's like, dude, I woke up for this.
Where you at?
Yeah,
where you at?
Where
You're
you
late.
guys at?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Wow. That's impressive.
It's fascinating.
That's impressive and kind of cool at the same time. And you got I mentioned this before over at your podcast. I was in radio for 24 years, but how you escaped radio is beyond me. I mean, he's got an awesome voice, does he not? He's got the pipes.
He's got the pipes, the deep pipes.
He's got the fucking deep pipes. How you go to karaoke night and not sing Barry White would be an insult to the evening and
I'm never drunk enough.
and deprive the audience of
Or
an
Johnny
amazing-
Cash. Think about that.
Or Johnny Cash, yeah.
That'd be a big one.
That'd be huge.
I did radio for a little bit, like in college. I tried it. That was the reason. Like I didn't know what I wanted to do, and so it was one of those things that puberty hit hard. It's like all of a sudden the voice went from like
Seriously, that voice?
Oh yeah.
When did that 14? You had
Yeah,
that
so,
voice
like,
at 14?
I was happy, when I was younger singing and stuff like that, like like elementary and middle school choir, and it's like I had a great falsetto type thing, and then fucking puberty came on, and just like punched me in the gut, and it's like I got back up, and I'm like, hey, what's going on? I'm like, God damn it.
And
I had no idea what to do with it.
your balls dropped hard and deep.
Oh yeah.
Now think about that voice. Think about that voice with long blonde curly hair.
Well, that was in college. Yeah.
I mean, it's
it worked.
that picture.
It worked.
Like
is
Roger
amazing.
Daltrey.
Yes.
Oh, man.
It worked out well. But no, yeah, it's funny. Even now, like people come into the shop, they're like, "Oh man, you should be on radio." I'm like, "Oh, you're in the business?" They're like, "No, but like you should."
No,
be
but you should be
I'm
on
like,
radio.
Cool,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
You should do voiceover.
Yeah,
like, do you know how
podcast.
You know what?
competitive that is?
24 years, no one's ever said to me, "You should be on radio." I just happen to be on radio.
"You're in radio?"
Yeah, it's more the question mark. It's more the question mark.
Yeah.
It was more the question than anything else. Oh man. So, what about your personal lives? How does the podcast affect your personal lives? in any way. And he probably doesn't need to. Does he need to be closer with that great voice, or is he fine?
No, he's fine. He
He's
sounds
good.
great.
All
All
right.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. It carries. It carries. Yeah, you're
It'll
good.
get too
It'll get too. It'll be. Oh no, then we'll all just melt away.
Yeah, no.
You get too
Someone's gonna
close.
write you a complaint like, I was in my car and the subwoofer blew out. Like, I need a repair bill because you blew
It
out.
hasn't blown out
Or-
since Johnny Cash and Barry White.
Yeah.
Oh man, but no, how does the podcast get in the way of your personal lives?
No, not really. At the first, just because I'm in a younger relationship, right? And Steve's with a happy lady now. It's it's kind of we're both with two great ladies, and they've understood the whole thing. So I think that it doesn't really. It's a simple
good.
question.
They get it.
Yeah,
They get
it does sometimes, at least with my schedule, just because I've been kind of flopping jobs in the last year or so. So the schedule itself, like when Dino was coming in, I was upset that I was a little late, but that's what I had to do that day. So it's
Didn't
kind of
bother
what,
me.
Yeah,
I mean,
so
I had nowhere
but
to
that's
be.
the stuff that happens.
That was
you know?
my night, and I was there for as
Yeah.
long as I needed to be.
My personal life, so I'll say this, right? So like you get into this and you have a friendship, right? So then all of a sudden we're doing this kind of like pseudo business. We don't know where it's going to go. So as far as personal relationship with Jake and myself, like we've had our ups and downs because now you're trying to put something out there, and you have two creative minds that you fuel it with late nights and a lot of whiskey.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it's 2 a.m. and it's like, no, you don't understand. You know what I mean? It's like one of those
I
nights.
would
And then
tell
like,
you.
the mornings after, it's like text going back and forth, like, brother, I love you, man. Like, it's all
I'm
good
sorry.
and all that stuff. Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't mean everything I said, but like we should probably talk
And
about
this
this.
is stuff that's been on the podcast.
Yeah,
We've talked.
It's
I mean,
on the
we're
podcast.
completely open about most
Yeah.
of everything.
But as far as the personal life of the relationship, I just bought the house that you guys were over at, the other, and you met Liz, and we've been together for about a year, and I don't know what it is for my life, but like she's also 24. So we've had that where it's
It's just he gravitates towards 24-year-olds. I don't know.
guess. But she's actually super supportive. She's a very positive person. So her, and she's in the restaurant bar industry, so she kind of understands it, right? So it's more or less one of those things that the only thing that's affected my personal life, as you might know too, is, and you're semi-retired now. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I have to be somewhere on Thursday morning. So when you're hosting, and as you go out to the front porch, you were over at the house, you left. There are nights where I'm hosting and I don't want to kick people out.
Right.
And so I've like set an alarm for like 11 p.m. and every week I just
Never
shut
works.
it off. We're good. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Next thing you know, it's 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
We're familiar.
I'm
You
familiar.
know that.
I kept that same behavior when I was working. I'd have to be at
tough.
work. The show started at 5, and there'd be some mornings I'd roll in right at 5 because I was up till 3,
Yeah.
and sometimes not to bed at all.
Yeah, right.
Whatever the case might be.
Just to hit on that last week episode with Sarah Store. Thank you, Sarah, from Hashtag Comedy. She was talking about her like must-haves in a relationship, and one of them was you need to have a passion other than me. So I think that's healthy to have a passion, but also to be in a relationship with someone who, if doesn't cultivate it, at least is just cool with you doing your own thing.
Absolutely.
Because we all need our own little space where we can kind of do our thing. And as soon as one of us gets like, well, we're all married, or well, for the most part. Like if all of us
Committed relationships.
right. If all of a sudden I was still dating around and had this new girlfriend who wasn't gonna have this, and I had to be like, sorry guys, I can't make it tonight. Like
You'd be
that's not,
out.
yeah, it doesn't happen that way. So
Yeah,
right.
There'd be a discussion.
Yeah, so I guess
We wouldn't make
it's
you
great.
choose. We would just tell you you're out.
Yeah, sorry, buddy. It's
I
either
wouldn't
her
put
or
you
us.
I wouldn't put you to the pain of
thanks,
choosing.
buddy.
I'd just kick you out.
That'd be rule number
'Cause I love you.
10, 11.
So the key is, right? So the key is that if you're gonna like stay up and drink at your own house and smoke cigars and all that
Right,
stuff,
right.
put microphones in front of you and a laptop out, and like be like, no, we're doing a podcast.
And make
it's
it worth
cool.
it, yeah.
We're doing it
and
for
then they
a
like
reason.
it. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're doing it for a reason, and it's like
This
so
is
don't
my
understand.
art.
That'll work
Yeah,
for a couple
This
years.
is my outlet. Yeah, for a couple of years. We're at episode 70, 71, like I said. So it's all good.
Hansberry wrote down where we're at time-wise, and I'm going to make a call here and say that while we've discussed the bourbon and the lifestyle and what these podcasts are all about. We didn't get to much of the BS, and I kind of wanted this one to be a little bit of an homage to the boys and how they do their podcast. So what we're going to do is a part 2. On part 2 with Jake and Steve, we're going to get to the BS part of this podcast. I'm going to ask them some questions that could lead us down some interesting rabbit holes. If it's anything like the time I spent with them on their podcast, I can guarantee you
That's a yes.
we will go down some rabbit holes. So, gentlemen, to wrap up this part 1, thank you very much. We're out of Statesman, the guest bottle for tonight, but because you're so gracious and generous, you brought other bottles to keep us wet through part 2.
That's what you're gonna go with?
Are these leather seats, Dino?
Huh?
Are these leather seats?
I mean, you're handsome and all, but
When I say wet, I don't mean it like your young minds may think it. I think like an old drunk sot, wet.
fair
enough. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Good
So
cover.
Bourbon and BS available wherever anybody gets podcasts.
Absolutely.
You guys do the Facebook Live thing with your millions of viewers. I know you said
it's all Bourbon and B.S. podcast, and there's a logo with a glass cigar on top of it and a microphone.
Yep.
Nice.
Because there's other people out there that are doing similar titles. So when you do the search for it, it's Bourbon and A&D BS podcast. There's one out there that's BS and Bourbon. I don't think they're active anymore, but so it's just
that's the
Bourbon
thing.
and BS podcast.
That's what we got going for. We consistency.
Yeah,
There's so
right.
many podcasts out there. They just
That's right.
throw one out there, and then when they get around to it, they'll do another one.
Which I love your guys' name, by the way. Was that like a playoff for Risky Business?
Well,
Like,
it's
what
not that.
was the-
Apparently, it's not that original of a thought. Because there's, I see
there really?
T-shirts everywhere. There's a big bar in Chicago called Whiskey Business. I mean, it's I'm not the first one. I thought, there's a band
So it's
called
a
Whiskey Business.
with Dino Tripodis
With
helps.
Dino Tripodis.
There's only one of those.
influence.
You know?
The infamous.
Thank God, there's only one of those.
It's amazing.
So,
Well,
what-
I got
you got a little business to do before we wrap
Yeah,
up part one?
there's a 5-star review I just wanted to share with everybody.
Okay, do you ever share the 4-star reviews?
Well, no, not
Those
so
don't
much.
matter.
Good. It's a
This is
5-star.
from Cam the Man. Thank you, Cam the
Cam the
Man.
Man.
Great podcast. I have tried other podcasts, hands down. The only one I will tune into every week. The best guests and topics. Short and to the sweet.
Cam, you
Whoa.
are the
Short
man.
to the point.
You are
Statesman.
the man, Cam.
Yes.
Statesman
Thank
got
you.
to him.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
5 stars.
5 stars. We'll take it. iTunes.
But
rate
rate and review us on iTunes. Thank you. Subscribe on all of your podcasting apps. Whiskey Business with Dino Tripodis on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and keep an eye out for more information on the Podcast Festival and the Columbus Podcast Awards.
Podcast Midwest. Podfest Midwest.
You got to pull it up again.
Damn it.
Damn it.
You know,
It
never
rhymes. We should know that.
Podfestmidwest.com.
Podfest Midwest. We got it.
Wow.
Excuse me.
Bless you.
Whiskey Business is a Never the Luck
Allergic
production
to rhyming
produced on
words.
the so efficient
Oh,
audio
geez
side
Louise.
by Greg Hansberry.
We got a part 2 coming up?
and John Whitney on the video side, and the exceptional guests who are coming back for part 2. Steve Crane, Jake Sanders from Bourbon and BS podcast. Thank you, boys, so much.
Thank you
Stay
for
right
having
where
us.
you're at, because we're just going to take a little break and come back with part 2, which will be a little bit more of the BS
Yes.
that I think you're going to find very interesting. Until the next bottle, see ya.